We've all been there before. You spawn back at the bonfire, go trudging up the stairs, run past the enemies, and dive through the fog door only to be annihilated by the same boss for the 97th time in a row. And yet, we keep coming back to try again. In Dark Souls, Bloodborne, and yes, in Unworthy. That's our featured game for today's episode. I'm Jack Breen, and this is Hybrid Plays. If you haven't heard of Unworthy, it's a 2D side-scrolling Souls-like made by lone developer Alex Kuzmanovic. Its silhouette art style is instantly recognizable, and its Metroid-inspired level design is on point. But rather than finding new weapons on the bodies of enemies or in treasure chests like in Dark Souls, you get them from defeated bosses. These weapons act as Metroidvania-style items that help you access new areas. The hammer, for instance, lets you break open weakened walls and hit these platforms down. Not surprisingly, Unworthy is as hard as the games it takes its inspiration from. All of the bosses killed me multiple times, and there were even some normal enemies that gave me trouble. However, I was never frustrated with the game. Sure, some deaths can be irritating.
Stupid fucking bitch!
But nothing ever made me want to put the game down. And this is precisely the reason why something like Dark Souls has gotten so popular. It's one of the hardest games of our generation, and yet it's attracted a huge fanbase. From Software's difficulty makes their games special. It makes it feel like these games weren't meant to be beaten, and therefore, when you beat them, you actually feel like you've accomplished something. You won't get this feeling from a Call of Duty campaign because anyone with more than 2 brain cells can beat one of those. The AI is simple, there's almost no penalty for dying, and they're practically just shooting galleries. Most games include harder difficulty levels, but it's not as rewarding when you finally kill a boss that the guy on normal killed on his first try. You see, this sense of accomplishment is born from doing something that not everyone can do. The same rules apply in everyday life. For example, nobody's going to feel accomplishment from simply walking into a store, because anybody can do that, but you might feel a sense of accomplishment driving through a store. So it's clear that making a difficult game will increase the player's feeling of accomplishment, but how do you design something hard without making it frustrating? How do you encourage players to keep fighting rather than causing them to give up? Well, I think there are a couple of pieces to this puzzle, so I've narrowed down my major lessons into 2 chapters. Addicting combat mechanics play a huge role in these kinds of games. Hitting enemies in Unworthy just feels good, and the same can be said for Dark Souls, Bloodborne, and the rest of the crew. Whether you're slaying prey like a madman or getting your ass kicked, fighting in these games is fun, and when the fighting is fun, you come back for more. One big part of achieving addicting combat is visual feedback. I'm talking about those little effects that make each attack stand out. Things like blood splatter, dust particles, white flash, and hit stun make combat feel juicy and impactful. Unworthy has a lot of these effects. Blood sprays out of enemies and stains the ground red, sharply contrasting the black and white landscape. Heavier weapons shake the screen and feel as weighty as they're supposed to. It's addicting to smack these guys around, and that's what keeps the player coming back for more. To show you guys how you can make your combat juicier, I'm going to show you how I did it in my own game using the effects I just described. So for the past 9 months, I've been working on a Zelda-style game called Tribus, and I've done a lot of work on the combat to make it feel satisfying. Let me break down the visual feedback that's going on here. First off, we've got knockback. It's important to convey a sense of power to your hits, and to the enemy's hits as well, because if there's no power behind it, then it's going to be a lot less interesting when you hit things. The same goes for screen shake. It helps convey that sense of weight and strength. White flash is a telltale sign of taking damage. White is the brightest color, so it catches the eye, especially when it's only on the screen for a split second. We've also got this white hit effect that plays quickly. This can be seen in pretty much every game, and it adds a lot more to the hit. The most complicated effect I have going on here is hit stun, which is when the game pauses for a split second with each attack. Actually, it's not the whole game pausing, it's just the player and the enemy involved. This effect was popularized by arcade fighting games, and it's used pretty widely today. Everything is pretty much here now. Lastly, some of the enemies bleed, which adds a bit of permanence to your attacks. For me, having these bloodstains that don't disappear makes it feel like your battle has affected the landscape around you. The blood effects in Dark Souls 3 are satisfying as hell. When we compare the end result to what we had with nothing, the difference is obvious. One feels empty and lifeless, while the other is super juicy.
You can see all these visual effects come together in the real world, too.
Oh, wait. I forgot. Screen shake doesn't happen in real life.
So the visual component is key, but another big part of achieving addicting combat mechanics is to make sure your controls are responsive. If your sword doesn't feel good to swing, nobody's going to want to keep swinging it. It's commonplace for stronger, heavier weapons to have slower initiations, but the default weapon, whether it's a sword, dagger, or your fists, should be close to immediate. Having a slow swing should be a choice, not a rule. Having combos or alternate attacks also helps to spice up combat. Combos reward the player by landing multiple hits on a row. Usually the last attack in a combo will deal a bit of extra damage. Alternate attacks give the player more freedom in a fight. In Unworthy, you can perform this long-range jumping attack. This is similar to Dark Souls' strong attacks. It leaves you open, but it deals great damage if you land it. The alternate weapons also allow for custom combos. You can switch between weapons with the press of a button, so you can land a few hits with the sword and then finish off your barrage with a hammer strike. Visual feedback, responsive controls, and multiple attacks all add up to make combat addicting. Unworthy succeeds on all three of these fronts, and thus, combat is fluid, juicy, and never gets old. This is a huge step towards keeping your players motivated, but like I said before, there's 2 chapters to this lesson. Souls-likes are hard. It's one of their main staples. Players will flock towards a hard game, but as soon as it starts to feel unfair, that's when they quit. There's a fine line between hard and unfair, and in this chapter, I'll explain how you can try to stay on the fair side of things while still creating a decent challenge for your players. Let's talk about...
Sex?
No, we're not doing this again. Okay, you need to go because you did this last time, and I'm not putting up with it again. Okay, all right. Can you go, please? Okay, thank you. Let's talk about telegraphing.
Telegraphing is when enemies prelude an attack with an animation. This could be something as simple as a ghoul raising a sword above his head. Other forms of telegraphing include roaring or changing stance. Going back to my game, Tribus, I like to make my enemies draw in and hold position before they strike. The snake, for instance, coils up, holds for a frame, and then lashes out. I also do this thing where the enemy's outline turns white on the frame before they attack. Telegraphing is important because it lets you know that an attack is coming. It gives you a chance to get out of the way. As a rule, the stronger the attack, the longer the telegraph should be. Let's look at one of Unworthy's first bosses, Narcos, the Anvil. This hammer swing is his most common move. It has a telegraph of about 40 milliseconds. It'll take about 40% of your health as well. So it's a pretty quick attack that deals a reasonable amount of damage. On the flip side, one of Narcos' strongest attacks is the Shockwave Slam. Its telegraph is roughly 1.8 seconds, over 4 times as long as his hammer strike, but if it lands, it'll take over 80% of your health. For an attack that strong, a telegraph of 1.8 seconds is definitely fair. For a boss to be beatable, you need to be able to hit him. That's where openings come in. Openings follow a similar rule to telegraphing. The stronger the attack, the longer the opening should be afterwards. For example, Father Amandil, a later boss in the game, has an opening of almost 2 seconds after this dark energy swing. This attack has a pretty wide range of motion, which means you'll have to be a good ways away from him to dodge it. So having a fairly long opening afterwards gives you time to get back to him and land a few hits. Telegraphing and openings both work together to give the player a chance during tough boss fights. If the player doesn't have time to react, he'll get frustrated, and if there's never a chance to attack, the fight will become unfair. Here's a dramatic reenactment of a boss fight that doesn't follow these tips.
Dude, Jesus! Dude! Oh, shit! Dude, shit! Jesus! Shit! Fucking shit! Jesus! Oh, dude!
Addicting combat keeps the players coming back for more, and creating fair yet challenging gameplay will ensure that players don't feel cheated during a fight. These are our 2 chapters from today's lesson. Keep these lessons in mind, and you'll have the key to creating a motivating Souls-like experience. Dark Souls 3 was one of the hardest games I have ever played. The dancer alone killed me maybe 70 times. But I loved the game. I loved the story, the world, the weapons, the characters. I was encapsulated by every second of it. And if this game taught me anything, it's that you can accomplish whatever you want as long as you keep trying. And I did keep trying, right up until I beat the final boss. Motivation is key in these games. If I hadn't been having so much fun, I wouldn't have been motivated. And if I hadn't been motivated, I wouldn't be talking about the game right now. But let's not forget about the real star of the show here, Unworthy. Alex, if you're watching, you did an awesome job with this game. The controls are tight, the level design is great, and the atmosphere is perfect. I absolutely recommend this game to anyone who's into Souls-likes, Metroidvanias, and just good games in general. Before I sign off, let's review the key components from today's lesson. Making combat that's fun and addicting will make the player want to try again and again. Visual feedback can up the juiciness of your combat, while implementing combos and alternate attacks will keep the combat from getting repetitive. Bosses and enemies should be tough, but not unfair. Bad guys should telegraph their attacks. The stronger the attack, the longer the telegraph. Enemies should also leave openings so the player can land hits. The longest openings usually come after the strongest attacks. You guys, thank you so much for watching. This has been the 7th episode of Hybrid Plays, and we're already almost up to 70 subscribers, which is awesome. If you learned something today, make sure you give this video a like, and if you want to stay updated on future episodes, you can go ahead and subscribe. And if you're a super fan and you want to go the extra mile, you can head right on over to my Patreon, where you can donate some money and help out the channel financially. Like I've said in the past, it's my hope to someday be able to do this full time. I mean, it beats the hell out of my current job, I'll tell you that. You know, what can I do? I'm just trying to make ends meet. But like I said before, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see y'all in the next episode. Take care, you guys.
Alright. I just made an enormous mess. I'm gonna fucking clean it up as fast as possible. I don't even know where to start. Step 1. The walls can't be fucked. Absolutely not. It's not okay. I would not expect watermelon to go this far. At all. So we clean off the walls, get a nice finish on it, titanium white, the way it should be. And if your dad calls you on the phone, you just tell him you're busy, and that's okay. Sometimes little boys do science projects, and they get busy. There's a trash can in here. I'm probably going to miss it every single time. Now a lot broke, clearly. That's okay. That was the point. I'm just trying to get it off the wall. It's on the speakers and shit. Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, fuck. Oh, shit. Fuck. Oh, shit. I made a big fucking... Ah, shit. Oh, Jesus. I made a really... Oh, shit. Oh, God. There's watermelon back here. I didn't expect this. Okay, hang on. How much film is left? Oh, God. Oh.